U.S. President Barack Obama's choice as the next Secretary of State says Iran must comply with inspections of its nuclear facilities. Massachusetts Senator John Kerry testified before congressional colleagues as part of the process to confirm him as America's top diplomat. VOA State Department correspondent Scott Stearns has our report.
Senator Kerry enjoys broad bipartisan support, so the hearing was less about him getting the job and more about what he'll do with it. He said the first priority for U.S. diplomacy is resolving the country's domestic budget crisis.
It's hard to tell the leadership of a number of countries that they have to deal with the IMF, balance their budget, create economic order where there is none, if we don't provide it for ourselves.
Senator Kerry said the United States must confront immediate challenges, including terrorism and the threat from Iran's nuclear program. Iran says its program is peaceful. Senator Kerry says it's easy enough to prove with inspections.
We will do what we must do to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. And I repeat here today, our policy is not containment, it is prevention. And the clock is ticking on our efforts to secure responsible compliance.
After nearly 30 years in Congress, Kerry is well known in much of the world, both with longtime allies and leaders who Washington opposes. He says Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has missed his chance for peaceful change. Senator Marco Rubio says it's time to settle on a comprehensive strategy for Syria.
I think it was in our national interest to help an opposition form and organize itself. We've been so disorganized in our involvement in Syria that now we're at a point where the opposition in Syria, when they win, and they will win, are just as angry at us as they once were at Russia and China and the other nations, and Iran and other nations that stood with Assad.
Kerry said a precipitous collapse holds risks for Syria's neighbors, including Israel.
If you have a complete implosion of the state, nobody has clear definition of how you put those pieces back together, number one. And number two, you have a much greater risk with respect to the chemical weapons.
Brookings Institution scholar Michael O'Hanlon says he expects Kerry will help President Obama in much the same way Hillary Clinton has.
Hillary got along better with the Israelis than President Obama did. Same thing for John Kerry, who has a pretty good relationship with Netanyahu, among others. Kerry's also done okay in Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Senator Kerry said it's time for a new U.S. role in the world where young people are rebelling against years of disenfranchisement and humiliation. Scott Stearns, VOA News, the State Department.
Well, to discuss the confirmation process of Senator Kerry further, Scott Stearns joins us now. Welcome, Scott.
Thanks.
So from what we gathered from the piece you just reported, it seems his confirmation is pretty guaranteed.
Sure, yeah, there's really no question about that. He has broad bipartisan support. The full Senate is expected to vote on his confirmation Tuesday.
So what are we likely to see in a Kerry-led State Department that maybe wasn't that seen under Hillary Clinton? Anything new?
Part of that will be determined by President Obama, of course. You know, what are the foreign policy goals that he wants to make in his second administration? I imagine that we might see more action on the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, but that, of course, is dependent on the government that Prime Minister Netanyahu forms, which is still happening. But there will be the issues that you can't avoid, obviously. Syria. Iran, Afghanistan, and this fight against Islamist militants in Mali.
Mali and the other regions. And speaking about Mali and going to the broader African issues, Africa came up to a degree, Sudan in particular. What was the discussion around that?
Indeed, Senator Kerry has met several times with the South Sudanese President Salva Kiir and has been involved especially on the Darfur issue. He spoke of the humanitarian crisis in southern Kordofan and Blue Nile. He spoke as well about finishing off the comprehensive peace agreement, saying that it's Khartoum's responsibility largely to help resolve the issues of Abyei. So I think that Senator Kerry, when he's Secretary Kerry, will be involved in South Sudan. He'll certainly be involved in the situation in Mali and the larger instability across the Sahel, which of course touches Boko Haram in Nigeria as well.
Now, I was talking to you earlier and I was asking you about, these big shoes that Senator Kerry now has to fill because, of course, Secretary Clinton got a lot of praise for what she managed to accomplish in the 4 years that she's been in there. How much really leverage does Kerry have in terms of pushing some agendas, even if it doesn't come as a directive from President Obama? What is he at liberty really to pursue? And having been a presidential candidate, he highlighted a lot of the things that he was interested in.
Well, of course, any foreign minister is bound by what his or her head of state establishes as a goal. But here's what might be different in the second round. President Obama has no job beyond this. Senator Kerry will have no job beyond this. So both men can perhaps pursue Israeli-Palestinian issues. They might be able to pursue more of a reset with Russia, perhaps more movement on North Korea and getting China more involved with that Secretary Clinton was not able to do. One, because it was President Obama's first term.
Right.
Two, Secretary Clinton certainly holds out the possibility of another presidential run, and perhaps was reluctant to engage in some issues that may have, if they didn't work out right, would have been political liabilities.
What do we know about his team? Who will make up the Kerry administration team?
Senator Kerry, at least at present, appears to be bringing with him to state a surprisingly small number of people. So some of the Clinton people will stay on for the first few months to help in that transition. But they appear likely to be replaced not by Kerry people, but by Obama people, which I think will mean a greater cohesion between the Kerry State Department and the Obama White House. I never bought the argument that, oh, well, Secretary Clinton's State Department was at war with an Obama White House, because I didn't see that. But she clearly did have her own State Department that was somewhat independent and operated on its own. And I think a Kerry State Department will be more daily in tune with the Obama White House.
Thank you, Scott.
Sure.
Scott Stearns, our State Department correspondent, joining us here on In Focus.
Now we want to know what you think about In Focus and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is VOA In Focus, and you can check our Africa headlines 24/7 at voaafrica.com.